Hello, welcome back to a new episode of the podcast with your host, Jen. And I have my brother here, my younger brother. His name is Qarlo. He's going to be co-hosting with me in this episode. So this episode is going to be about more like a millennials versus Gen Z conversation. So we didn't really grow up together in a way where most siblings do. We are 11 years apart. Mm-hmm. So we're a totally different generation. I'm a millennial and he is Gen Z. We're from Canada. I like to say Z just to go back to my Canadian roots, but we'll say Gen Z because that's what they're known for. I talk a lot of crap about this generation, to be honest. It's the TikTok generation, the woe is me generation, my all-time favorite, the woke generation, the let's all love each other generation. I don't know what can you how can you roast my generation?
Those are all true. Those are all like speaking from a Gen Z, an older, I guess you can say Gen Z. Myself, it is a lot of the stereotypes you could say are pretty true. Yeah. In terms of that, in terms of millennials, I don't know. I feel like Gen Zs are just so like self-involved that we don't think about the other
That's so
generation
true.
About the other generation.
So let me just mention this. So millennials are from 1981 to 1997. And the Gen Z generation is from 1998 to 2010, apparently.
I would say like 2010, yeah.
Or 2011, 2012, I don't know. Let's say 2010.
Yeah, early 2010s, yeah.
So this newer generation, well, not the newest because we have Gen Alpha, which are my kids. My brother's generation is growing up to being grown adults. Not grown adults, but they're all in their 20s. They're starting to work now. They're already starting families. Some young parents. Mm-hmm. My generation is heading to their mid-30s. A lot of them already in their early 40s. And yeah, so
I think to roast your generation because I have that in my head now.
Yeah,
I guess like you guys are the first generation to get basically shot on by older generations. Yeah. For a lot of different millennial stereotypes.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Like just feeling very lost or like not knowing what to do with their lives or the first generation to
because
and why is that can you speak on that?
We had we had boomer parents as our parents, so a lot of it had to do with just doing our best pleasing the older generation. There was a lot more disciplinary actions. There was a lot less technology, like in terms of all we had was the TV. So if we didn't like what was on TV, we just wouldn't watch. We played outside a lot. We had to problem solve. So that's where we see a huge gap to relate to with the Gen Z generation because everything seemed like it was handed to you. Everything was so like my parents definitely catered a lot to your emotions than mine.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
I can
and I don't know how because we have the same parents. They're both boomers.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I think it has nothing to do with you guys as people or millennials as people. It has to do with the moving world that we're in. Mm-hmm. We didn't grow up the same because my time was so different. We didn't have a lot of technology. Yeah. We had a lot more hands-on skills. Whereas it's like we didn't have a tight grasp of just being more active. There wasn't much of a village with you. It was a lot of it was we did have a nanny with you. Our parents were both working. We kind of separated from not separated, but we weren't as close to extended family. And I think we're getting that back now because we see the lack. Yeah. But with Gen Zs, it's like there was a lot less of a village. With Boomer generation, there was more like you had a whole village. People took care of you for free. And then slowly in my generation, we still had help from uncles, aunts, cousins, and that's why I feel like there was a lot more secrecy in terms of being molested or drama.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And now you guys are more protective, hence why it's the more like scared generation too, the more like protected generation. And is it because of you as people or is it because of how we've raised you and how times have just been different.
Well, let's talk about millennials first, like in terms of like going back to like how you grew up, Ate, with our boomer parents without getting too expose here.
No. Yeah. I don't know. Like, again, Ate and Kuya were our millennials. So it was pretty much that. Like, we had to take care of ourselves. We had to learn how to turn on a stove.
Yeah.
I don't think you know how to turn on a stove. I don't think you know how to boil water.
I personally know how to turn on a stove.
Well, yeah, because you're also past 20.
Yeah.
But like
at an early age, right?
At an early age, yeah. Like my sister was probably 11 years old and had to cook for us and turn on the stove.
Oh yeah, I remember.
She almost burnt down the house. Like
yeah. So like with me, I'm the youngest, and then. There's 4 of us, so let's go back to that. So we grew up with boomer parents, and there's 4 of us. So I'm the 4th. My sister right here is the 3rd.
Yeah.
And then we have an older brother who's number 2, and then oldest sister who's number 1.
Yeah.
So I remember growing up and just like we're already 11 years apart. So with my 2 other siblings, it's like an even bigger age gap.
Yeah, and it got to the point where Ate was like your mom.
My mom, exactly.
Yeah.
So. For those who are Filipino, Ate means older sister in Tagalog.
He's going to refer me as Ate, so just, that's what we say.
So older sister, and Kuya means older brother in Tagalog. Yeah, exactly. So I remember growing up and hearing stories of how the 3 of you just like had to fend for yourselves. Yeah. Like, so what was that like?
Like, we were left alone. At like, my sister was probably 9, I was 4, like, no, not 9, but like, she was a preteen. I was probably preschool, and then Kuya was 3 years older than me, so we had to stay home by ourselves for a long period of time when our parents were working. So like there was no adult for those straight hours. So we were home alone for a majority of the day after school was done, and so my sister had to do a lot of domestic and caregiving work, and I would see them kill each other because they would fight all the time. They would chase each other with knives. And like my brother was a skinhead, so he was like, his hair was shaved, and my sister would just stretch the skin out of his head, and that's how they fought.
Oh no.
And they would
really Ate would do that?
Yeah, they would fight. Because my brother wouldn't listen. My sister was trying to play mom, and she was also a troll too, so like she was like really like messing with him too, and my brother wasn't having it. So there was a point, like I could just remember this, like he was like chasing her with a knife and I started crying. So like when I tell you like trauma, like you guys have trauma, I have trauma. Like trauma. They were chasing each other with knives.
But like, okay, this isn't this is just our lived experience. Like our family is very loving, especially now. Like we're still a very tight knit family. We wanna like lay that out there.
No, nobody's killing each other.
We're good. We're all good. We're all safe. We're all healthy. Blah blah blah. Yeah. This is the unapologetic podcast. Yeah, we're gonna say it how it is.
Well, yeah, we shouldn't say sorry for us growing up a certain way. You guys probably have this the same upbringing as us.
But I know this is a podcast or an episode about millennial versus Gen Z, but we both did grow up with boomer parents, so let's talk about the boomer generation first. So why were they, you think, with your educational background in childhood development and parenting, and you being a parent yourself, like why? And also to give context as well, like we did grow up in an immigrant family household, so when my siblings were growing up, our parents were still like trying to get their foot in the door in terms of trying to make it in this country, like make it in North America, and feed like their 3 and then eventually became 4 kids. So what can you say about that Ate, in terms of boomer parenting?
I think
immigrant boomer parenting.
I think it's just the changing world that we're living in. I don't think it has anything to do with the differences of people that we are. I think it's the world that really molded us. We have the same parents, but I think it's the world that molded us. Because
that's true.
Because our mom and dad raised us in their late 20s to 30s and raised you like late 40s. Yeah. Like not late 30s, late 30s to early 40s.
Yeah.
So
my
they
mom
weren't
had me at 44.
40, I think 42.
42?
Yeah.
All right. She's early to mid 40s. Yeah. So I was
they're giving up. They're just, honestly, there's nothing left in me with you. Like I feel like yes, they were boomer parents. We have the same parents, but again, the evolving world, the changing world changed us as people. and the generation. It's just weird like that. So when my parents were still in their late 20s to early 30s, they were still trying to make it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like there was a lot of pressure. They were hardly home. They were trying to make, they were trying to buy bread and make that money.
Yeah.
And so they relied heavily on us being independent, which is why we're more independent than you.
Exactly.
And I feel like they were very sorry for that. And I feel like when they were raising you, they didn't want you to go through that because they know that it wasn't right. Like they should be the one providing, and they should be the one to spend more time, quality time, and care.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're doing to you. And I think that's what the generation now is shifting to cater more to your generation because of how there were so many events that happened. And I think the world is changing so much that like the whole like emotion is more important than it is like then go. Exactly. Because before it's just like we got to work, we got to do this, we got to do like everything was very streamlined, everything was very on routine. And now with your generation, it's more like let's take a step back and just chill. Let's be together. Let's spend more quality. It's just more of a pleaser parenting kind of style now.
Yeah. But with the traditional boomer parenting style and like immigrant parenting style, and the time period of growing up, early 90s.
The best era. That was the Menendez case. I'm so obsessed with this case.
The Menendez.
That's episode case. 1. But I just felt so bad, like living my life and knowing that they were in jail all the time. Anyways, that was that's off topic. But the 90s was a great time. Great music, great color. There was a lot of color. There was a lot of like really good, comfortable outfits. It was just fun. A lot more outdoor play. You know, just simplicity, a lot less phones, no documentation. Everybody was just unapologetically themselves. They were just doing life.
Exactly, yeah.
That it was also during a time where our parents' job money was enough to sustain them. Their job money was able to pay the rent, pay a lot of groceries, pay for vacations, pay for Kumon and like all of these extracurriculars. And now as we're nearing like parenthood ourselves, like I'm a mom, you don't have kids yet, but like as like coming to this generation now, you got to pick. Like it's either you want to have kids, then you can't travel. If you want to have kids and a car, then you can't afford a home. Like there's so much give or take now, whereas back then the boomer generation, they don't realize that at the same time they had it hard, but they also had it pretty good. Not saying easy, but they had it pretty good. They had harmony. Yeah.
But you talk about how like the millennial generation is like grew up in a really great time period, like with great music, great colors, and less technology. Yeah. You're the last generation. They're the last generation, I think, to grow up without technology.
Like again, because if there wasn't anything on TV, we were allowed to go outside until the lights were on, the lampposts were on, and it was dark. Like there was trust there.
But what were some downsides to being a millennial, growing up as a millennial, or just living through that generation?
I think adulthood. I think we had the best childhood, but the worst adulthood.
Oh wow, really? How come?
I think so, because there was still harmony growing up. It was a lot more simple. There was not a lot of news media outlets, events, a lot of social media like now shoved into our faces. There was not a lot of comparisons. There's only comparisons when you see somebody in your classroom and you're like, oh, I want to Polly Pocket like that. That was it. It was very humbling. Whereas now you have to look at so many people's lives and you have access to that. So I feel like us growing up during the early 90s or mid 90s, there was still harmony. It was still nice. But growing up now as a parent and as an adult, it's super hard because you have to pick and choose what you want. You can't have it all because you're basing it off of what your parents had. Our parents they were able to afford homes. They were able to afford groceries. They were able to have 2 cars. You could be a stay-at-home mom. Both of them can work but still have time to have dinner with the family. All of them, our parents were home at a good time. And these are immigrant parents. Like our parents were immigrants, so they had to make it work. Like my dad worked nights, my mom worked days, so it was like that. But it was still harmonious. You still were working for something and still had money in your pocket to save. Whereas now it's so tight.
So tight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God, it's horrible.
Yeah, because like although I was able to buy a home, I bought two. No, I'm kidding. And I was able to buy a home. We can't afford a second car if we wanted to. Yeah. Our groceries are super high. We can't buy like things that I remember. Like I loved going grocery shopping with our parents because I could just put stuff in and they wouldn't bat an eye. And I think that's just them as people. Like my mom never
cared about prices. Yeah.
She never cared about prices. Yeah. My dad was the one that looked at prices, but it was always doable to just put the Dunkaroos in, put chips, and it wasn't like, holy crap, we spent $500. I could buy the bare minimum and it would already reach $200.
Yeah.
And we would eat leftovers, you know, like. But
yeah.
So like what do you think of how did you grow up? How did you think it's different from?
Man. Well, I think growing up for me, again, like we're speaking from our own experiences, and also like people that we know in our own generations, right? But I feel like growing up Gen Z was very isolating, very alone, very like we had to learn to become self-reliant. But I think a lot of people, millennials and older, kind of like look down on us, or trying to like not look down on us, but they kind of like there might be this stereotype. It's like, oh, you have everything handed to you. You have all this
almost
access.
Envious.
You have all this access. You have all this technology. You guys
everything. Are so lazy because all you do is
go
be on your phone.
Yeah. And
you guys don't talk or initiate. You guys don't help.
There's a level of truth to that, but there's also reasons as to why we're like that. Like,
what do you think would be a reason?
I think, again, like speaking from my own experience, like I think like our parents. Our parents raised me in a different but also similar way in terms of like just like I was always like just like my parents like boomers. They just love to work. They just love to work.
They really wanted to work.
Wanted to work.
They would be sick, and they would still work.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I felt a little tingle in my throat, I'd be like, I'm calling it off.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you guys would just not work.
Okay, we'll get to that. But in like growing up too, like I also just grew up because I'm the first. Like Gen Zs are considered digital natives, so we're one of the first generation I think to properly grow up with internet and technology and then thus social media in our especially in our teenagehood / young adulthood.
Yeah.
Like and so you didn't grow up with
nothing.
Internet and social media in
internet
was high school and uni,
internet,
right?
You would have to fight for internet. Like the amount of times
in high school and college, that's crazy.
No, at home, like I remember you can't use the phone. If you wanted to plug the internet, you can't use the phone. So like mommy and daddy wouldn't let us use it during the day because then we wouldn't get our calls.
Oh my God.
So like if you hear it, if like let's say I plugged in the internet and somebody wanted to use the phone, it would be like shh, and then that would cut off the internet.
And you didn't have a phone in high school?
No, I did not. I got my first phone on my 18th birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. And that's crazy to a lot of Gen Zs as well.
I was on the bus to go to high school in grade 9. I was like 14 years old without no phone and no idea where I was going. I cannot imagine doing that to Audrina.
Oh my God.
Because we have this perception of the younger generation that they're a lot more weaker. So is it because of you guys, or is it because how we treated you guys and how? Okay, for sure it was how the world was working. How the world is working, but it's also how we cheered you guys on to like.
I think it's our reliance on technology. Like I learned one thing that I feel like growing up with millennials and boomers and all that. I'm a particular case. A lot of my friends wouldn't. Some of my friends wouldn't relate because their parents are a lot younger and their siblings are a lot younger. But I'm envious in the fact that, you guys have a lot more lived experience and you guys like cheered on your generation in terms your era of like prospering 90s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But with our generation, it's like we relied so heavily on technology. Like growing up, I grew up I learned a lot about the world through TV, through television shows.
Yeah.
All I would do was, you remember this, like I would always be at home watching YTV, watching SpongeBob, and then like video games. Like,
do you think that's what molded you?
It definitely molded me. Yeah.
That's why you guys are really crazy and so animated. That's why you guys are
overstimulated and animated. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you guys are so good at TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
I cannot
short attention spans though.
Yeah.
It sucks in my opinion. But
I talk a lot of crap about this generation usually, but at the same time, you guys are such a powerful generation because you guys can bring about topics and bring about injustices, and make it a big deal. Like you guys were the ones that pulled up a lot of like true crime stuff and advocated for certain true crime topics and also brought awareness to it.
Also, our generation is big on social justice.
Yes.
Yeah, big on social justice, and we're known as the woke generation.
I know, and I hate that shit.
Which has its positives, but also negatives. We'll get into that, and we'll get into that in future episodes. In future episodes too. But like, it's because of our access to technology, but also I'm envious because I feel like you guys have a lot more lived experience in terms of real world experiences.
Yeah.
So, and for me, like, I don't know, I tend to gravitate towards people who are older because of my upbringing. Like, I even have some friends who are a bit older and are in a millennial generation. And I was having a conversation with this friend one time online on Instagram, and he sent me a video about being a millennial, and then he said to me, he's like, I feel like not to talk, he didn't talk badly about any generation, but he was just like, I feel like millennials have a more objective mindset because they're able to come up with their own conclusions and do their own research, whereas like and be more observant, whereas Gen Z's like have so much information shoved down their throats
that you can't just decide.
You can't just decide. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to decide, and then we're also influenced easily by. Yeah, but you guys are technology.
Also very outspoken and very good at that. Like just speaking your mind.
We are outspoken. That's a good and a bad thing though, because like.
And also, that's hence the woke.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you guys don't know what the heck you're saying.
Exactly. Sometimes we don't know what we're saying.
But you guys are just outspoken, and that's something that millennials I feel are envious of, because we couldn't be outspoken. If we saw an adult, we could not talk back. You guys talk back.
We do talk back. Yeah.
But in a reason where the person that you're talking back to could get in trouble. Before, if you talk back, you're the one in trouble.
Also, in terms of that, like, I feel like it's also a difference in terms of real world and technology, because I feel like you guys are more outspoken in real life, whereas we're a lot more outspoken online rather than and within our own circles rather than
I think you're tougher than us.
Really?
In terms of showing that you're tough. But in actions, yes, we have more resilience.
Yeah.
You guys will cry about it, but like I feel like you guys have more confidence in yourselves.
I guess so.
That's why you can change certain things and be like good about it.
I guess it depends. It depends on what. Maybe. Like in terms of social justice, yes. In terms of like especially hot button topics that we're very passionate about, our generation is known for being the most outspoken.
There was a viral video of Jenna Ortega. This is the Beetlejuice premiere. It was Jenna Ortega and Winona Ryder. Jenna Ortega is, of course, a Gen Z. And it was them two in a press conference. They were yelling at the girls to, like, look here, look there. They wanted to take a picture. And somebody called out to Winona Ryder saying, like, take off your glasses, take off your glasses. And then Winona Ryder's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to, I should. And then Jenna Ortega's like, no, don't do it. You don't have to. And it's just like, and that made waves because it's like Gen Zs were the people that got away. Like, they were the ones that didn't have to do everything that is imposed to them, whereas millennials, I still think that there was still some kind of pressure and still some kind of discipline that we had to follow a lot.
Exactly. And I feel like, and I think that comes from childhood. It comes from like how you grew up.
Because if I talked back to our parents like how you would talk back, I would be killed. You talk back and they're all like, oh my gosh, you're talking back again.
Sugar, like they still get upset, but like I get away with it, I guess, easier.
I guess it's also male and female too, but like the difference in like it's crazy. I feel like a lot of us are scared of you. Not you, but like a lot of parents are scared of the younger generation now. Like they don't want to upset them.
But
whereas with my generation, you were still able to bully them, and we would still be compliant. Yeah. Like we would still be like, okay, I'm sad.
Oh no.
And they're like, yes, you're sad. Okay, my job here is done.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. But do you think that's why that's the negatives of growing up as a millennial?
I think, I talk to a lot of people my age, and they're like, I'm so glad my parents raised me this way and not your way.
Yeah. You do have a thicker you do have a really thick skin.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you were saying about lived experience.
Yeah, lived experience.
Because we had to do the work, and so our body just remembers. Again, the body keeps the score. Like, we just remember how it feels like to be tough and to stand up for ourselves in action, where as opposed to words. Because you guys can go up on TikTok and be like, I don't like how they did this, and then get likes and feel validated. With us, we actually had to like be hood about this stuff and like actually do the work personally. We had to like talk. You guys do it through a screen.
Exactly. Yeah, but a funny example of the difference of, I guess, me growing up a bit easier than you is, again, back to the economy thing. Like we lived in a house growing up. Now it's like impossible to live in a house.
Yeah. But our parents not downgraded, but how do you say down? I guess downsized to a condo.
Yeah. But before we lived in a house and
with a backyard and everything.
I remember before Ata got her 2 properties.
Yeah.
She had this room.
and he said it was his favorite room, and so I'm like,
when she moved out, I took over that room,
and it was his favorite room.
And I just told her before this episode, I'm like, that's my favorite room that I've ever lived in.
My depression room. I'm like, and I'm like, so you knew that it was my depression room?
I did know it was your depression room.
Yes, so I had a depression room, and I feel like you guys are so outspoken and so about injustices and doing all that. Mine was still suppressed. Like, my generation is a very suppressed generation.
And you had to learn a lot about survival. Like, you had to do everything yourself.
Yeah, and our emotions were very suppressed, which is why we are still coming out of mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I got cleaned up after that room.
Yeah, he helped me clean it. It was a disaster. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Was it really bad?
Really clearly. Yeah, it was actually very it was actually really fun.
Remember when you found my health card?
Yes, I was about to say, I found her health. I remember cleaning up.
And it wasn't even like on a desk. It was like behind my bed in a pile of mess. My health card.
No, I think it was like there's like a desk you had in the corner full of crap.
Yeah.
And then like I found like these health cards, and one of them was yours. And I found them like, Ate, what is this? And then you're like, oh my god, that's my health card. I was like, why is it just out on in the table? Oh my god.
Yeah, I raised a child in that depression room. Oh my
god. And I think I found her health card too.
Yeah. Oh, and you found Adriana's health card. Oh my gosh.
Or her like some sort of health document.
I went through some things that you would never know how to feel.
Oh man.
I went through some things.
Oh man. But I feel like you're in a much better place now.
And that's why I love simplicity and I love peacefulness. Because of what I had to deal with by myself in true time, and not having that platform of being able to express my emotions. Because now TikTok, and not really Instagram, like millennials are more Instagram and Gen Z is more TikTok, but TikTok is like an open diary. You guys can like have digital no makeup on, be in pajamas and like talk, and it's such a humbling platform because you see people with their true colors, true self. I didn't have that growing up. I could have documented like, hey, I'm going through this, but again, we're just so scared of like what people think of us, and I feel like you guys are still I feel like you guys are okay. Like you don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of our care is pretty internal.
Yeah.
Like, you like to applaud us in terms of like having all these platforms, having all this access.
Yeah.
But that, in my opinion, comes at a price because our generation is like Gen Zs are very, very, and I can speak for a lot of my friends too, extremely anxious. And I think that
it's
and
too
socially
much.
Anxious because it's too much. It's a lot.
Yeah, because before it was just the metro, like it was just the newspaper and what you see on TV.
Cable.
Our minds, cable. Our minds aren't meant to multitask, and it's also not meant to retain so much information. So that's why you guys are very mentally ill, because of just seeing and feeling and hearing so much stuff through your phone. We weren't meant to do, our brains are not meant to do that.
And I'm a prime example of Gen Z anxiety. Like, I am anxious about everything. I'm anxious about social media.
But that's also like, you guys don't believe or trust, I can't say that, you guys cherry pick a lot of what you think is true, whereas with us, we go to a doctor, we go to the library, we get those facts. With you guys, it's like what you see somebody else saying on a social media platform that holds a lot of biases. So,
and a lot of us who aren't influencers, like, a lot of us actually keep our digital lives private because of how we know the internet is like. Like, a lot of my friends, I feel like I'm like one of the few people in my friend groups, or like
you're also an older Gen Z.
But like, even Gen Zs around my age, a lot of them cherry pick in terms of who they show stuff to on social media. Like, a lot of my friends' Instagram accounts are private. A lot of their stuff is private, whereas like their Twitter, their X, I guess it's called now. Snapchat was big with my generation because it was like, you just send quick snaps and then it goes away, it disappears. Whereas you guys are a lot more like, I feel like all your Instagram accounts are just beautified and like also very public. Like, you guys don't care, because you don't know what it's like to really grow up in the internet. Because growing up in the internet as a Gen Z, you see a lot of influencers also, and even like around our age, like, blow up on social media, but then they are also consumed with all of this, a lot of people's perception of them coming at once. And then also cancel culture is a big thing in the internet, and that affects a lot of our mental health and our perception of being online, because like, we don't want to experience that, and we're so anxious about what other people think of us. We're so anxious about how we portray ourselves in social media, and it doesn't help that the real world outside of the internet is not the best for us right now as well. Like, we're growing up in a time that's like,
you guys are also very quiet too. So that's probably why.
Part of the anxiety of it, part of just being chronically online. And
so your mental battery is just depleted. So and like, you guys don't do small talk. And
exactly.
Like, a lot of
I do, but a lot of my friends don't.
A lot of my coworkers, they're just very quiet into themselves. They can't hold up a conversation. I guess because we can't relate. I don't know.
Also, we can't relate to like older millennials and stuff like that. Sometimes I can personally, I think so, because of how I grew up. But a lot of my friends who didn't grow up with such a different family dynamic, like, don't.
What struck me was our conversation with like, and it's how different we are, is during family functions. Like, my brother, our eldest brother and myself would be the ones starting up conversations, sparking up topics, trying to get everybody together,
getting the families together, like a big group. Like,
the people that wouldn't talk, like, just like, hey, how are you? They're just trying to pull everyone out of their shells for the purpose of to hold that togetherness again. Because, again, we grew up with togetherness. And when there is a family function, we just kind of want that back. And I think that's why we're just wired to be like, hey, let's all be together again, like how we did it back in the 90s.
Wow. Oh, right? Wow, that makes sense.
And you didn't see that, right? So
when
we talked about it, and I'm like, when you said it to me, you were just like, I noticed that you guys like want to make up games, and you guys are so outspoken and funny, and you talk a lot. Like, with me, you said you like small groups.
I like small groups. I like talking to select people who I know I can have a conversation with.
Hold a conversation.
And then just just who I'm comfortable with.
And
like, Gen Zs are very picky with who they want to be comfortable with and who they want to talk to.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
And the prime thing that you said was like, I don't want to work.
I don't want to work. Exactly. I don't want to work during a family function.
And I'm like, that is so freaking true. I am working.
I don't want to put effort. Like, I'm here to enjoy. Like, let me just enjoy.
And I feel like that's just my generation. Like, we work. Like,
Learn how to relax.
Like, why do I have to be the one to like get everybody together and like, I don't know. It's so true.
It is true. But I feel like you guys in adulthood now, like when you guys have not easier, but a lot of you now at this period.
You had a chance.
You had a chance. So now you're able to relax. You're able to go on like a lot of vacations.
I can't imagine where you guys can go from here.
Yeah.
Because I just caught a really good time with the housing market. I was able to have kids at a good time. I was able to have a home at a good time and save as much at a good time with you guys at this time. It's so hard to have those lived experiences because it's not like you could go find an apartment for $500, which we grew up with. Like my generation was able to find a $200 or $500 apartment or basement, and it was doable, and and work and have our money go towards rent, food, outings, like little things. It was still doable. The economy wasn't so bad. Now it's like if you want to move out, your whole savings account would just go towards rent.
Exactly. And that's a lot of the reality of my friends who do live on their own and stuff like that. And I want to speak on that because that's a big thing, and that also adds the anxiety.
Yeah, and it's just like, and we crap on you guys so much about being lazy and being overwhelmed, and it's like, it's true because of how the world is. It's not how you guys are as people, because it's how the world is now. Help is hard to get. Like, there's no village anymore. Like, it's not like our families live close like before.
I feel like it's almost like a reversal, like in terms of you guys had to hustle in your early years
because we were able, because it was still doable. It was still doable.
And then now we're considered the young generation that's lazy, not doing as much. But then when we grow, God forbid, we grow older, and then it's not going to be as easy. We're not going to be able to be homeowners or have like prosperity. I think maybe. I believe anything is possible with anyone. I just want to say that. Like, I'm not trying to like be pessimistic. I'm not a pessimistic person. I want to like to point that out. Like, I'm not. It's just
reality. It's just being practical.
And I do think there's a chance for anyone to make it.
Of course.
And I know you believe
really
that.
It's really hard for you.
But it's different now.
If I wanted to work, I could go to a McDonald's and put on, like, look at the manager and give him a hard copy of my resume, and they would call me back the next day or so. Now, for you guys to even work anywhere, it has to go through a paper trail, it has to go through online, and you'll be called back maybe 3-6 months after. And it's just like, my hustle and grind was a product of knowing that it was still doable. I would still be able to get something out of it, whereas with you guys, the hustle and grind is very far-fetched, and it's harder, which makes it less likely for you guys to accomplish because it's just harder. Like, you don't want to, and the also mentality too. Like, you were talking about home ownership, and it's like, it's at this time right now, it's going to be very like impossible. For me, it was possible, so I just kept going and going. But for you, it's just like you're kind of stuck. Like, you need a lot more than what I had.
I know
to put in.
I know. And like it also sucks because of what we see on social media and what we see online. It's like we want
the beautification
of a lifestyle, of a good lifestyle.
And we also need to understand that is, again, not true. And I think the whole influencer cult is really ruining it for a lot of us.
I know.
Because and
it also shapes a lot of my generation's mindset. Like, my friend was saying that, who I mentioned earlier, like, he was saying like, like Gen Zs are so drawn to being influencers because that's what we grew up with.
And that's fast money for you guys.
Fast money for us. Yeah,
that's exactly. It's not always practical because then everybody would be
I don't think, like, from my lived experience with my friends, I know not everyone wants to be an influencer, but like, it is something that is enticing to a lot of Gen Zs, and that, like, even if you don't want to be an influencer, you're contributing to it on social media. You're following these people, you're giving these people money, you're adding to their views, their likes. And a lot of influencers push certain agendas, push certain things that sort of warps our mindset and warps our, like, perception of things, especially if it's not true, like, but it depends on the topic. But I feel like you guys are a lot more objective. You guys know how to be more careful with how you learn about information and all that stuff.
So do you really know how to boil water?
I do know how to boil water. Stop.
So you know how to boil, okay.
Yeah.
You know how to make pasta.
I lived on my own. Don't forget that.
I forgot about
for you in uni.
But you needed help for that. Like, your parents had to help you. And that's what I noticed. A lot of it.
Well, they helped me more than they helped.
We really need to help that generation. The younger generation needs a lot more help financially, emotionally. So it's not because how weak or how not resilient they are. It's just how we treated you guys and how the world is and the economy is. It's so impactful to how you kids grow up.
Yeah, but growing up with older parents and older siblings, I learned I did get it easier, but like in terms of living on my own and stuff like that, I did pay my own rent because like I learned early on to hustle and to get to work, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful to you and like my brother and like my parents for pushing me in that direction, because it's not going to get easier.
Yeah, but you never
and you need to save up.
You do. Need to save up. It's so hard now. So
to live a good lifestyle.
Yeah, but like again, so our takeaway from this, if it could be anything, is there's always a possibility for anything. There's people that had nothing and their creativity came out and they ended up making something big for themselves because they had nothing. So sometimes when you feel like you have nothing, it's just a step back to move forward. When you feel like you push things too much and you want everything to go smoothly and go great and you're pressuring yourself too much, the more likely you'll be clogged. And I think right now in this fast moving world, I think taking a step back and feeling your feels about like, fuck, I have nothing. Really rest on it. And then the more you rest on it and kind of clear your head, you're more able to move steps forward, if that makes sense. Because again, fast world, we consume so much information that we just really need to clear our head. And that's why things like meditation, the whole meditation movement is like, they're coming for us. They're like meditation.
Self-care movement. A lot of my friends are big into self-care, going to the gym. And I want to speak on that for Gen Zs. Like, it's like, we went through our own kind of thing too, as Gen Zs. Like hardships in terms of.
Like the pandemic.
The pandemic was a big one.
Your prefrontal cortex wasn't even developed yet. Like, you guys were still young.
And we were isolated. Like a lot of my generation can speak on like having their high school or university life, a big part of that taken away from them, a big part of our young adulthood taken away.
We're adults, so we were able to handle it. And another thing is that we're the working generation. Like we're always working, so you guys had to really like, you had no choice but to entertain yourself using an iPad, using technology. So that's why you guys are all weird. And
it also hurt, like even further hurts like how we communicate and why you think we're so weird and anxious into ourselves because of the pandemic, because of like global recession and all that.
Like there's a difference between going through the pandemic when you're like a teenager to your early 20s and going through the pandemic as like a as a 30 to 40 year old. It's a totally different kind of resilience and trying to how to handle that.
And I feel like even like the younger Gen Zs too are having it hard post pandemic as well, because I feel like they find it hard to have a conversation, or they're not as socially in tuned, right? Whereas I'm a bit older, so I went through it. I took it a bit easier, I guess you can say, but
another takeaway from this podcast, from this episode, is that we can't always blame people. Like we can't always blame or give you guys a lot of crap, because you guys really had a totally different upbringing. The world is always changing. We're at a really weird time. So it's not so much like, oh, you guys are lazy, you guys are this, or you guys are that. I think you guys are such a powerful group that could really make things move and really spread awareness to a lot of things.
For better, for worse, social justice. And I think it is because we are so...
You guys are so empathetic.
And we're also very open-minded. Yeah, that's a big thing. Open-mindedness is a big thing in our generation.
When we were doing the Menendez episode, like, you were so adamant about putting a disclaimer and being like, you're being too mean. And I'm like, so who cares? They need to grow thick skin. You're like, yeah, but you need to make sure that you tell people and give them resources. Like, you guys are just we catered you to a lot, and that's what we're getting out of you guys.
And also, we know how the internet is like. So we know how, like, you know, if you tick someone off, like tick people off, that's it. Like, you're getting a storm coming at you. And that's what we had to learn through influencers we followed getting canceled, like, you know, not being able to, like, being careful with how we say things online and stuff like that. Like, to my group of friends and I, like, we're very unapologetic too. Like, we're very, like,
I hope that when you guys...
And we're very open I want to say that we're also very open-minded, because we are catered, and also like what was I gonna say? The whole like social justice thing, like Gen Zs are known for also being the generation with the highest, being the most expressive in terms of their sexuality, their gender, because we're so feelings based. There's criticism in terms of that we'll get into in other episodes, and I even as a Gen Z don't agree with some of the woke stuff that's happening in terms of social justice and
like all of a sudden I'm listening to some things and it's just like, let's start off by making this a safe place and we're gonna tell each other our pronouns, he, him, she, her. I'm like, since when did we become all stupid? Of course you are she, her. Like, it's just too much, you guys. Oh gosh,
it does get too much.
Like, we don't have to be too much
in terms of that. That's a very controversial take.
Yeah,
but we are.
I know I would have lost a follower with that one, but who cares? Whatever.
Me too. Don't worry.
Yeah, but it is what it is.
But there are positives to it. Like, we are very open-minded, and even I remember recently, I was having a conversation with my friends about tattoos.
Yeah.
And they were just encouraging me. They're like, oh, you know what? Who cares? Who cares how anyone expresses themselves?
Yeah.
Who cares what you put on your body?
You guys are such cheerleaders too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So body positive, so sex positive, so positive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the reason why I was able to do this podcast was because of you being you'd be so good. My older brother, Daniel, they would not be they would just be okay, you gotta have this and that, you gotta this and that. But you're just you could do it. You could do it. Let's do it. We're gonna say this. And then it was just such a cheerleader vibe. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you guys are such powerful people to bring up, and the whole Winona Ryder, Jenna Ortega thing is such a little sister, big sister movement where you guys try to protect us because we still are the last generation to still to get some kind of shit still from society and all that stuff, and we're still recovering from that. And I think you guys are way past that. Or moving away past that and really making that known.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was a great way to end it off.
Yeah. Right? Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy this conversation, and to the next one.